going to talk to you about how to address your opposition in practice essay 2 and research essay 2. So the first thing to know when handling objections from your opposition is that a good writer knows how to anticipate the needs of their audience. And you'll also be aware, as a good writer, that your audience isn't always going to agree with you on every position you have or every thought that you have. Now, you should realize that your audience isn't going to be hostile toward you. They're going to be reading what you have to say with an open mind, but maybe differing beliefs. So over here, the green box is an example of some of the thoughts that your reader might have while reading through your paper. They might be asking, have you considered blank? I wonder if blank could apply to blank. That might be true, but what about this? And then they might point out that so-and-so would disapprove or argue against what you just said. All right, now I want to make one extra note. It's easy to get paranoid with thinking about how people can disagree with you. And realize that in your paper, it's going to be impossible to address every objection that every reader will have to your idea. So instead, when you're addressing your opposition in your writing, you want to just make sure that you're appealing to the majority of your readers or addressing any big holes that you know might be present in your argument. So where are you going to find opposition in your writing? So someone is most likely going to disagree with you either with your overall claim in your paper, with one of the reasons supports your claim, or with one underlying warrants that underlie your reason or claim. And if you need more of a reminder on what these three are, you can watch the Practice A2 video on our writing process page, right here where it says how to find your audience argument. All right, so when addressing your opposition, there are these three questions, and this will also help you find where they're going to disagree with your paper. At which one of these points, your claim, reason, or warrant, do you think your opposition is most likely to oppose you? And then where will this objection come up in your paper? Where are you talking about this claim, reason, or warrant? And that will be the point where you need to address your opposition in your paper. Most often, that's going to happen in one of your three blue paragraphs or one of your three main arguments. All right, second, did you come up with any evidence or argument by your opposition while doing your research? So maybe you read an article by someone who you disagree with, or you have a quote that would summarize your opposition's beliefs nicely. Third, how will you answer or address your opposition? So, one thing to acknowledge your opposition, you now have to respond to them and explain why you disagree with them and why you think maybe their claim, reason, or warrant isn't true. Okay? So think about it. What evidence do you have to back up your opposition to your opposition? Right? That's very important. You need to be able to counter them with evidence in your paper. All right. So like earlier, your reason paragraphs or your body paragraph where you will most likely counter objection. However, you may want to kind of address your opposition even in the introduction of your paper or set that up. So if you use introduction approaches 4 and 6 that are mentioned in our textbook on pages 71, 72, that can be one way to incorporate your opposition in this paper. And realize for essay 2, you are required to address your opposition at some point in your paper. All right, so templates for introducing opposition. These are a little more complex than some of the other templates I've shown you. So perhaps in the middle of one of my body paragraphs, I'm giving my evidence, and I might say something like, my evidence proves, and I'll explain how the evidence relates back to my claim. And then I may acknowledge that my opposition disagrees with my evidence. So I could say, however, and I'll name my opposition, assert that blank. This is a valid point, but it does not take into account, and then I'll give some additional evidence that would refute what my opposition says. Therefore, then I'll explain new evidence and how it refutes what my opposition just said. So that's a nice, polite way to give your evidence, acknowledge a disagreement, and give more evidence to counter. If I have a quote from my opposition and I want to show that and respond specifically to what someone says, this is how I could do that. I can name the person, maybe just position in general, or the author of the article, and say, so-and-so believe blank because of blank. So here I need to put down the reason or warrant for why they believe this, why they're making this claim. This is supported by people like so-and-so, name the author. Then give the citation of the year. So this author who says blank, give a quote, and if possible, give a page number. However, I'm going to name this author again. They don't consider, and then I'm going to introduce my evidence that kind of disproves or counters what was said in this quote. So if you want more templates like this for introducing your opposition, if you go to our writing process page, scroll all the way down to the very bottom, it says templates for introducing your opposition, and you'll find more templates to help you that way. So lastly, I want to emphasize, we want to treat our opposition fairly. And the reason we want to do this is a good way to convert someone or persuade them to agree with you is to show courtesy to those who you disagree with. Okay? So make sure to treat your opposition fairly, explain their position and evidence in a tone that they would agree with. Use words that they would approve of. If I disagree with you, I should read your summary of my position and say, yeah, that's fair. That's exactly what I think and believe and why. Okay? So build some agreement with there in how you portray them. Second, focus on answering their objection to your claim, reason, or warrant. Don't get into perhaps character attacks or anything like that. Just sort of stick with the underlying reasons. Give the reader an idea of why the opposition believes their claim position is correct. Don't ignore that. When you ignore that, readers sometimes get a little suspicious and that you're hiding something. And you don't have to go into elaborate detail on why your opposition holds the position that they do. Sometimes just one sentence of briefly stating one of their reasons is good enough. And then lastly, sometimes it's very helpful to quote or cite your opposition so that your reader can see for themselves what your opposition is actually saying, and they also see that you did take the time to read your opposition and research them a little bit to know what it is they really believe. So overall, these are just some tips to help you incorporate your opposition into your practice essay 2 and research essay 2. And remember, it is required in research essay 2 that you incorporate your opposition somehow in your paper.